Hello, welcome to Topper Machine. I'm Josh Topper, and today we have a repair on our new to us vibratory tumbler. So with the idea of the pin jaws that I'm going to start making for the vices, I thought, you know what, we'll tumble them and get a nice smooth finish on all the corners, everything. And I ran some test pieces in the tumbler just to make sure I had everything going right, because I added a tank here for the liquid, and it was working great until it wasn't. So let's go ahead and start it up and I'll show you what's going on. So as you can hear, it's very loud, and it shouldn't be. And what that is the top bearing. Because we come down here to the bottom and it's awful quiet. So much better down here. So I'm very certain it's this upper bearing. So I went through the owner's manuals that I got from Giant Finishing, and they had sent me all the manuals, everything. A great company. I bought the media from them. Awesome to work with. And their manuals call out the bearing number. So I Googled the bearing number, and it's the same top and bottom. And they're about 650 bucks a piece. Well, I found two new old stock used ones. Actually, they're new old stock. They're good, tight bearings. They've been sitting a very long time, but they'll work for this purpose. So I got two of them for $2 1/4 a piece, so a lot better pricing. And so let's open this thing up and see what we got to do to change that bearing out. All right, well, just first look in here, this thing's really disgusting. I mean, there's dried grease or something. And it looks like it'll clean up pretty easy. Maybe just scrape it out and grab the shop vac and suck it out. Definitely breaking up good. And then we have our top counterweight here. And so the top and the bottom one don't line up. They're a little off. One creates the vibe and one creates the motion. So one creates the roll of the media this way, and the other one creates the motion of the media this way. So pretty neat design, neat setup, and works well. So we'll go ahead and get this cleaned out and then get this arm off. Make sure we get our alignment right. We'll mark that out and then try to get the bearing out. Just to take a rag here with acetone and try to clean this upper part up here just so that I can mark it out good as far as alignment, so we know we're in good shape when we go to put it back together. And there'll be a lot more cleaning as we go, because we want to make sure everything is right. And look at that. Did I just see a mark? No, I thought I did. Just dirt. That's why we got to clean this stuff good. Take the paint marker here and mark out where the groove is. And that'll give me the best representation of where to put it back together. And I'm just going to do a little more cleanup in here. Get some of this grease from the bearing going bad. The wet grease out of here. and give myself a little cleaner area to work. We'll move the grease line here. I'll go ahead and spin this adapter out because we're going to need it on the new bearing. And we'll clean all this stuff up at the end for reassembly, just so that it's all going back on nice and clean. But just the grease in the tube doesn't even look that great. So when it started howling, I gave it a couple pumps of grease just to see if it would clean it, cure it and quiet it up, and it did not. So we know we've got problems that have to be addressed here. I'm just gonna wipe her all down with some thinner on the rag here. Just try to get so it's a little bit easier, cleaner for handling. And maybe we can see what we got. It almost looks like this bearing has a jacking hole here. And if we get her all cleaned up enough to where we can see it, it may have a second one. And if not, that's not a big deal. One way or another, we're going to get it off of there. Just going to poke and prod at it in this area. Doesn't look like there's a, oh, what's that right there? Another jacking hole there, and looks like a third one there. Perfect, this will come off real easy. Now, unfortunately, the new bearing does not have that, but that's not a big deal. All right, I'm going to start by backing the set screws out of this retainer ring. Let's see, there's the other one. And then I'll grab a socket and get those 4 out. It almost feels like they've got Loctite on those, which wouldn't surprise me one bit. Well, now I got all the bolts out. Let's clean out these jacking holes best we can here. Just a pick, and you're probably noticing how clean my hands are. I had to go to the bathroom, and I don't want to be touching that with that grease all over. So, had to wash my hands. Let's see, there's the third one. And I brought 3 fresh bolts. That should thread right into those. Excellent. And with any luck, the fit on this should be relatively good enough to jack it out. And that's what I'm hoping for, because otherwise we'll have to get a little creative to get that out of there. if it's coming up or not. It is. It's coming right up. Slipping right on that shaft. Excellent. You know, I just backed my bolts off a little. I was gonna go get pads, but I want to see if I can. Nope, not gonna happen. So I'll go get some blocks to stick under my screws there, and something, anything. Doesn't take much, just something to push against, and we'll walk this sucker right off. So as you can see, this is a very slow and tedious project. And once the bearing has cleared the hole that it goes into, the shaft is kind of flopping around because the other bearing isn't supporting it. Well, this bearing isn't supporting it now. And these are spherical roller bearings. They're not a ball bearing, so they do have that tendency to auto align, to correct. So because the weight on the bottom and the belt is still on, I didn't take the belt off, that is actually causing it to pull like it is. So like I said, a slow, tedious project, but we're making very good progress, and I'm just gonna keep trucking on it until we get her out. Got it. Well, there it is. That came out a lot harder than I thought it would. So I'm thinking, before we go ahead and put the new bearing in, I think we're going to go over to the drill and modify this one for jacking screws as well, just because it'll make it easier in the future. All right, so I'm over here at the Bridgeport, and because these are just jacking holes with absolutely zero critical location, we're just gonna spot it and drill them and move it around as we need it, and then hand tap them, just because there's no point in going through all that extra work. So I got a little spacer down here. So it sits in the jaws a little bit above the jaw, and we're just gonna pick our spots, and actually I'm gonna go here, over here, and over here. Or how did I have that figured out? Something like this, because I don't want to drill through the sticker like they had on the other one, even though it's just a sticker and it doesn't really matter. That's a good spot right there. Help if you put it in the right range. And we'll just put a drop of anchor lube on there. All right, we're just going to hand tap these, put a little anchor lube on our tap, and just run it through. And like I said, there's nothing special about the alignment or anything on these. They're just for the jack screw. So they are non-critical. You can add them to any bearing of this kind. Just something to help you get it off. All right, we've got our 3 jacking holes, and now this is cast iron. It drills pretty good, taps good, but there's just a minimal burr on there. All we're going to do is hit it with a file, knock it right off. No big deal, super easy, and all good. Perfect. Now we'll take it back to the tumbler and try to install it. Actually, before we go and put it in, I'm going to go ahead and clean this thing all out with rags and acetone and get it just perfectly beautiful. Clean up the bolts, or maybe replace them. We'll see how they look. Generally, I don't reuse bolts. I'll throw them away, but they look pretty good. We'll just clean them up. Well, that cleaned up pretty good. I'm gonna take just a little bit of grease, just a thin layer on the shaft here, just to help get it on, and maybe protect it from future rust, but isn't gonna take much. And then we'll go ahead and start putting the bearing on. Well, that took a little bit of persuasion, but we got her. And I decided to reuse the bolts, but not the lock washers and washers, just because the lock washers had already shown signs of being split open. So we'll just run new lock washers and washers, and go ahead and tighten this sucker down. ahead and tighten up the shaft set screws. And then I'm going to get a couple of pumps of grease to start with, just so we know we have fresh grease up here. And then we're going to purge the grease line before hooking that back up, so we know we got good grease coming up. And because these are new old stock bearings, I just want to give them a few shots of fresh so we know what we got. I'm going to put set screws in each one of my jacking holes so that in the future, if I ever do have to take this apart again, the holes will be clean. So something to think about if you're doing anything like this is just ensure they stay clean. You just run them in, snug them up a little bit, and they're good to go. And then if I ever have to do this again also, I'm going to make some longer threaded rods for jacking this off, so you just got to use one setup. There, now we got good clean grease up there. Pull that out of there. I'll finish hooking up the grease line. Put the counterweight on and we should be ready to fire it up. All right, well, it's all back together. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my mess here, put everything away, just get it cleaned up so we're ready to test run it. To test run it, I'm gonna leave the cover off here just to make sure everything's okay, but I'm hopeful we got this. Well, moment of truth. Let's see what happens. And I have not started this before this, so I'm gonna be just as surprised as the rest of you. Well, that quieted it up quite a bit. I'm now suspecting we might have to do the bottom bearing, which isn't a big deal. I bought 2 bearings, so I was planning on having to do some work to this thing. So not a big deal. Got the top one done. Well, it definitely does sound a little bit better, but maybe that bottom bearing needs to be changed, and that one's a little bit easier to get at, easier to do. It's not down in a recess like this. So it doesn't concern me too much, and I'm fine with doing that one too. Like I said, I bought the second bearing, so no big deal. So we just got to get this thing up and running and ready for making those vice jaws, those pin jaws. Like I said, I'm going to tumble them, make them absolutely smooth, beautiful. And then they'll be in my Shopify store that's linked through my website, toppermachine.com. So check out the website. And so I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you next time.